Hey,
Can you hear me?
I can. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. How's everything going with all this?
Oh my God. I feel like more of an SBA loan interpreter than I.
We are live now here on Facebook. I'm here with Chelsea Williams. She is the founder of Core Solutions Group and really excited to be talking to her today. I'm gonna let her explain what she does. She provides a really unique perspective to the legal community. And we've been kind of talking back and forth a little bit about some things that we're seeing happen with law firms all over the country. And so really excited for her to share her perspective today. Chelsea, tell everyone a little bit about what you do.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. I think as a provider, a service provider to businesses, it's kind of our responsibility right now to just share the information that we have. And so that's what we're going to do today. So I'm the founder of Core Solutions Group. We've been in business for a little over 2 years now. We provide accounting, tax, and outsourced cash management services to law firms specifically. I founded it on the idea that accounting services traditionally have been very reactive. And I think a lot of people right now, especially, they're finding themselves in this reactive state when it comes to their books. And so our mission was to set out with a set of very proactive services. So we get really involved with our clients and we look at profitability, we look at practice areas, matter types, and really get down to a granular level of what their financial picture is, and then paint that roadmap of where they want to go.
Excellent. So I think one thing that's on everyone's mind right now, and it's definitely on my mind as a business owner, is what should we be doing right now at this time? We're at home, we're not in our typical day-to-day routine. A lot of us are separated from our teams, and we're just trying to figure out what to do next. So what are some of the conversations that you've been having with your clients about what they can be doing to be as productive as possible during this time?
Yeah, so Tony Robbins says that business is 20% mechanics and 80% mindset. And I think right now people, you can tell the difference between the person who wants to make the most of this and kind of the person who feels drowned out by it all. And I think right now, and even the webinars that I've sat in on with some of the top legal minds out there, in my opinion, right now is the time to make the most of it. So for those that are experiencing a complete halt in what they're doing, like criminal defense attorneys right now have nothing. They are at a complete standstill. Right now is the time to really fine tune. And what the high performers are doing right now is they are fine tuning their processes. They're taking that list of projects that has been sitting on the shelf for years or months or whatever the case may be, and they're getting to them. I think this is also a really good opportunity. Something we've seen in the legal industry for quite a long time now, but few are catching on, is remote services. They're very reluctant. There's this mindset, especially with attorneys, that I have to have this office, right? That's the first thing you do when you open up your law firm is you find an office. But we have a lot of clients who work completely remote. And I think this is a good opportunity for people to consider the idea and maybe warm up to it a little bit more. So, and I like that you bring up team building. This really forces people to get creative with team building, because I'm a firm believer that your team is your powerhouse, right? You have to have a camaraderie and empower your team, and that's even harder when they're not face to face in an office. And so finding out those systems and what works right now, I think should be definitely a priority, because your team is your power, right? So I've been giving out the advice: host team web meetings and have fun with it. I've seen some people that do themed days, like Hawaiian shirt day for their team meeting, and making it a thing as if they were face to face. But on top of that, without the workload, something that a lot of firms have to think about is that when the court systems open up, they are going to get a flood of catch-up work, new work. And so preparing to be able to handle that workflow without experiencing a bottleneck and losing out on what they could have done, I think is going to be really important. And that means fine-tuning systems, automating systems, finding efficiencies in your workflow, you know, and making sure that you have the people, you know, some people have had to lay some of their staff off, keeping in touch with them, you know, as to, okay, things look like they're getting ready to open up. Let's get ready because we got this, and this coming, and really positioning themselves to be able to effectively handle the workload that is to come.
Yeah, I love that, Chelsea. And I think that one thing that we've been seeing a lot from our clients is adopting new technology, like you're saying. I actually had a conversation with a judge who was saying that the court system is now being forced to jump 10 years ahead, but it's 10 years ahead in you know, in legal terms, because it's really 10 years behind where everyone else is, right? And so I think that this is a great opportunity, like you're saying, for people to look at systems, look at processes, look at technology. And I think they're going to come out on the other side of this stronger. I think their businesses are going to be more efficient. I think it's going to help the consumer. You know, I think that's going to be a more client-centered law firm. So I'm looking for the positives in this situation. It sounds like you are too. The other thing I heard you mention that I absolutely love is team building during this time. There's virtual happy hours that are popping up. You know, maybe you can't hit all of those, but I love the fact that I can jump from one to the other and I don't have to drive across town from one bar to the next. I can be in a happy hour, you know, in Chicago in 1 minute and then be, you know, in another one in Atlanta the next minute. So it's kind of an exciting time to be able to do those types of things. And, you know, like you said, rather than putting your head in the sand and kind of feeling a little bit down about the situation, there's a lot of great opportunities to connect with other professionals and other people in your community.
Yeah, you know, and I'll say another important thing that I've seen a lot of is taking care of yourself. If you haven't had the time or discipline to create daily routines and get those positive, healthy habits in your mind or in your life, not only mentally, but physically, like take this time that you have to develop those habits. Science tells us it takes 21 days to develop a habit. So to me right now seems like a really good time to do that. And I'll also say, you know, something to chew on. Everybody has been jolted into this place of being forced to figure out technology. And like you said, I like accounting and legal kind of go hand in hand in some industries. We're both dealing with the government and these, you know, entities that be, traditionally, they're very slow to change, slow to react, slow to catch up. This entire industry has been jolted into this tech world that they weren't into previously. And my hunch is that it's going to stick. Processes are going to change and they're going to like it and it's going to be more efficient. Some practice owners are going to decide they like not paying rent and utilities and they're going to stay remote. So I think if you're not catching up with those systems, it would be a mistake to not take this time and take advantage of it to move in that direction.
Excellent. So, you know, one thing that we talked about briefly was pivoting your practice in order to respond to this situation, to keep the lights on, number one, but also take advantage of these different opportunities that are out there to serve people. You know, what are some things that you're seeing your clients do during this time to continue to bring in revenue?
So I'm a firm believer in not one shoe fits all, no one size that fits all. I believe that you should work in your strength zones. I've seen both sides of the conversation. I've seen people hop over from completely unrelated practice areas into, say, estate planning, because that's something that has actually seen an uptick because of all of this. And I think that you really have to evaluate your decision on an individual basis, right? Is it your strength zone? Is it something you're already familiar with? Because marketing doesn't happen overnight, right? If you go and build all these systems and this workflow, and by the time that your marketing funnel actually starts producing, because there's other people that are out there that are well established and they have a brand for these practice areas, who's your competition? So what I don't, want people to see is they find themselves in this position where they've invested so much time and money to practice areas. And by the time they can see the fruits of their labor, it's no longer relevant, right? And now they're split between two irrelevant practice areas. On the other hand, I have a client who is in criminal defense, and on the cuff, for the past few years, she's been building this entire system and processes, and she has a fully functioning website, everything for estate planning. All she had to do was flip the switch. I mean, she had it there. So if you're already in a position where maybe you were considering it, I think that pivoting, or if you have a practice area that's related, like, a business attorney with estate planning, then that pivot would kind of make sense. But I definitely think that you should consider all of the factors.
Right. And so I think we've seen a lot of lawyers who pivoted super early in this process. Like the moment the news came out that people were going to be quarantined and staying at home, they were jumping in, creating ebooks, resources, doing webinars, everything they can do, like all pretty much checking the box of, best practices during this time. But then there's other attorneys who are looking at this today and they're saying, well, am I too late? By the time I ramp this up, am I going to be behind? And so, one thing that I'm curious to know is, what are some things that you can do that are more forward-looking to deal with the aftermath of COVID-19 rather than, what's currently happening?
Yes. So there's a book from Good to Great that I always talk about, and plenty of other business books. One of the key factors of the successful businesses that stand the test of time is the ability to have that foresight. And so thinking past this crisis, I made a YouTube video a couple weeks ago. I had listened to John Maxwell had a Facebook Live, and it was Leadership Through Crisis. And it was talking about, crisis, and he even listed everything. And I mentioned some of it in my YouTube video. This is not the first time, nor will it be the last. And so to have that foresight to think past this crisis into what will happen, I think is also a good thing to plan for now. Like, look past right now, think about when this is over. What's going to happen? What are people going to be looking for? You see all those funny memes out right now, and it's like divorce attorney post COVID-19, and there's this guy like peeking out of the shade, right? So they're thinking about, unfortunately, because it's divorce, people are being stuck at home with their spouses, the divorce rate's going to go up. So thinking about what is to come, and definitely looking past right now. And, like we mentioned, marketing doesn't happen overnight. So even if you start your efforts right now, if that's where the trend is going to be, you're positioning yourself to be the first at the table.
You bring up the table. One thing that we've been kind of tossing around internally is this idea of everyone had their place at the table prior to COVID-19, especially in the legal space. Everyone knew the influencers, they knew the authorities, they knew the podcasters, the bloggers, the YouTube vloggers. And now that's kind of gone. That whole system is out the window, and everyone's going to be looking to see where people are sitting when things kind of go back to normal. And so there's a great opportunity for lawyers and really any other professional to take this as a moment to expand their influence, and a way that doesn't necessarily take advantage of the situation. I think there's a lot of great ways to use this situation to serve people and create resources for people. And that's going to end up being something you can leverage once this is all said and done. So one thing that we talked about was creating resources. What are some of the things that you're personally doing to create resources for lawyers during this time?
So right now we're focused on, just getting information out there. And again, this information sometimes changes multiple times a day. So, we're updating our YouTube channel with information about the SBA programs and what attorneys can be doing, all businesses really can be doing right now to take advantage of some of that. Some of the resources we already put out there, we've had that mindset, since the birth of this company. We put free information out there all the time. So we've got financial tools, budgeting tools. One of the things that I'm going to be sharing today is a cash management guide. I think you and I have had the conversation about Profit First, bank account budgeting. Mm-hmm. That guide goes through everything about how to, manage your money and move it around separately. So, just like you guys, putting information out there, I stay in contact with an SBA loan director with the most up-to-date information according to that bank. So just getting information out there. And, you bring up a really good point. Another thing that I've seen a lot of lawyers talking about doing is really leveraging social media presence right now. In a compassionate way, because, you don't want to be sales, come hire me as your attorney, but more just a presence, just showing up in feed, posting on Facebook, funny memes right now, just to make somebody smile and focusing their efforts there while they have downtime.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that's so important at this time is just creating little moments of positivity for people.
Yes.
I think it's so easy to get lost in kind of the doom and gloom, and then also see your role as just a resource and just trying to help people survive, where a lot of people just need that moment to smile. And it could be people that your clients that are your clients, people who are your referral partners. It doesn't really matter. I think it's just important for for people to create what we call authentic online relationships. You can't go and sit shoulder to shoulder at a bar right now, to catch a game or, do something more social, like, going for a run with a friend. This is the time to get online and to really have those conversations and not be afraid to be personable at this time.
Yes. Yep. Definitely.
So I want to switch just a little bit over to finance. And so one thing that we had kind of briefly talked about before coming on here was a budget. So living with a COVID budget, both business and in your personal life. So can you explain to me kind of what that looks like?
Yes. So this is something that we have been doing for the past few weeks with all of our clients. We're having emergency budget meetings, and I label all of them when I say them budget, right? Because this is a temporary thing. So what we're doing and what everyone could and should do is, if you have to have your books together. That's step number one. And I think a lot of people are realizing that right now. Accounting is something that gets pushed to the back burner, irrelevant, one of those don't want to see it, necessary evils. But right now, those who have their books in order really have, a level up on what's going on. So what we've been doing is going through every single line item. And this is actually standard protocol when we go to budget. But the difference right now is being able to make hard decisions and weigh your options. So we've got some people, we go through every single expense line item. We'll look at software and see what can be put on hold. We look at payroll is a big one right now. People are having to make the tough decision of let an employee go. And there are, unemployment benefits with the CARES Act that, might make that a good option. People are looking at taking salary cuts. I've seen even a few people, we talk about teamwork and camaraderie. I've seen a few law firms who they all come together and say, everybody's going to take a hit. Everybody's going to take a 20% reduction in salary or whatever the case may be. So, really going through, and if you don't have your books in order, go through every single bank statement. If you've never done this before, every time, and I can say that really confidently, 99% of the time that we go through this process with clients, we find expenses that can be cut. Especially in software. I don't know what it is with attorneys and software. It's like a quick fix, but sometimes we'll even find subscriptions that they didn't even know were happening. Right. And so, going through every single dollar that's leaving your firm right now and tightening it up. And then also payroll is another big one, coming together and figuring out, how can we succeed? Now, when it comes to revenue and being able to project your revenue, because you want to stay in the black with your budget, right? We have been able to safely estimate revenue coming in for the firms that are either sustaining or, and the firms that are thriving even too. But we have been able to safely estimate the types of revenue that are going to be coming in, especially for attorneys who are billing on a subscription fee basis or who have settlements coming in at a certain time. So making sure that you're looking at a realistic revenue. And sometimes we have that cherry on top, right? Sometimes we look at it and we're like, let's leave that out for now and just play it safe. Right. Mm-hmm. So, the gist of it is, for a COVID budget, go through everything. If it is not necessary, cut it. If you can put it off, cut it. A lot of vendors and lenders are participating in the payment deferral program. So even at a personal level, I've been telling people, call your subscriptions. A lot of them are giving away a few free months. A lot of them are doing discounts. Call your phone companies, call your mortgage lender. A lot of mortgage lenders right now are deferring payments, student loan payments. We know attorneys have student loan payments. Those are also being deferred. So reaching out to all of your vendors and see who is offering some sort of financial relief, be it temporary discount or deferred payments, looking for all of the resources that you can.
Yeah, that's great advice. And like you're saying, with things like student loans, that's going to transition from like your business to your personal life as well. I think that was one of the first things we did is we looked at line item, what are some things that we're looking at with our overhead? And like you said, there were software products that we were paying for that we didn't necessarily need. There were some that were hard fixed costs that we could not get rid of because we need those in order to serve our clients. But that's just the cost of doing business. And so like you were saying with this idea of just kind of going through and just having an understanding of what you have going in or coming in and what you have going out, that's the first step to making sure that you're going to be in good financial health when you come through the end of it. So one thing that I've seen a lot of law firms do, and I think you just touched on this, which is kind of being a little bit more preemptive in terms of seeking out relief, making cuts, prior to having that hardship. And so, have you been advising law firms that maybe haven't lost clients or seen a decline in business yet, but to look at this as a way to take advantage of those things that are out there for them, these types of relief that they can find? Have you been having conversations like that at all?
Absolutely. I mean, if it's out there, use it, because, and here's the thing, and this is the example that I use. For example, PI attorneys right now may not be feeling it because they have settlements coming in, but they've been working on those settlements for 3, 6, 9 months or more, right? So right now they may not be in a financial hardship, but 3, 6, 9 or more months down the road, that's when they're going to feel it. It's going to be delayed for them, right? So to not take advantage, and this is a practice we do every single year, not just when Corona hits, right? This is something that law business owners should be doing every year. In fact, with the cash management guide that's downloadable on the website that I'm sharing, there is a list of things that you should do every single year. Call your phone and internet companies, see if they have any better packages for you. Get your merchant rates reviewed to make sure that you're getting the best deals, because they're not going to reach out to you and let you know that you can pay less. You know what I mean? So these are things that you can do COVID or not. And so, yes, even for the firms that are sustaining or flourishing right now, take advantage of the strategy.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's great advice. And it's something that we've been seeing personally with a lot of our friends who have firms, a lot of our friends who own small businesses. It's a scary time. And so being able to take those steps, I think, puts you in a level of control that gives you a little bit of comfort in terms of like, you're in control of your destiny here and you're not going to let this thing steamroll you.
Yes. Yeah. And, another thing, so, for clients that have seen a stop or big decrease in revenue, if you have a cash reserve, making sure that where your break-even line is, right? How long can you survive on that cash reserve? What are you still willing to cut? When do you need to make more cuts? So in some cases, we have made a COVID budget and an emergency COVID budget. So we know when cash reserve gets down to a certain level, we need to go to phase 2 and make these additional cuts or changes to, money going out.
Absolutely. I think that's such an interesting idea, because I think a lot of people are looking at this as kind of like a, I don't want to say like a one-stop sort of pandemic. There's going to be multiple layers to this. And like you're saying, the repercussions are going to last for years, regardless of what practice area that you're in or what industry that you're in. And so having a plan in place to deal with those worst case scenarios is really important as we're moving forward.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the assistance programs and what's out there, what's available at this time, and how attorneys can take advantage of that.
Yes. So I'm going to go over 5 of those with you today. And those are going to consist of the changes in unemployment benefits, EDL, the PPP that can be forgiven, which is the payroll loan. There is a less talked about tax strategy that I want to go over. And then I also have some updated information on the personal stimulus checks that are going to affect, law firm owners personally. So to speak a little bit to the unemployment changes. So what the CARES Act did is they allowed states to be more flexible with their policies. The self-employed, the independent contractors, temporary workers are all eligible. It depends on the state as far as what your employment benefits are. Generally, it's 2/3 total wages, but a lot of states have a cap. They have an earnings cap. So you'll have to look up in your particular state what that cap is. In addition, this stimulus package has included $600 a week on top of unemployment. So we talked about having to make the hard decision about letting someone go or holding our breath for the PPP loan to kick in. And so this is something to weigh. There are going to be some people that go on unemployment right now, And for the next 4 months, they're going to be making more than they were when they were employed because of this stimulus. So that really helps employers be able to make that decision because, you know, we have a heart for our team and we want to make sure they're taken care of. And these new unemployment changes could very well do that. So it's definitely something to consider. Now, furloughed, a lot of times you'll see the reference furloughed worker, which means they're still an employee, but they're forced to stop working or have a large reduction in hours. Furloughed employees are also eligible for these unemployment benefits. So consider this as an option when you're going through and creating your COVID budget. If you don't need to do it at first, maybe it's on your emergency COVID budget, like last resort, we can lay people off and they're still taken care of, right? The EDL is the Economic Disaster Loan through SBA. So we essentially crashed the SBA's website when this broke loose, right? I have heard a lot of people whose applications have got lost. I have one through the grapevine, so take it with a grain of salt, that any application submitted on the 30th or before the 30th was completely lost. Hold times right now for the SBA, I've heard are in excess of 600 callers ahead of you. I would not hold my breath on this one. But basically what this is, it's an SBA loan with the option of a $10,000 advance, which is pretty much free money. It's, it's a grant. And so a lot of people are applying for this. They said initially they were going to have it deposited into bank accounts 3 days after. I haven't heard of one person who's gotten it yet. So, I think, again, they have some back end systems to work out. Overall, the government has moved as quickly as they can with everything, but the dust is still settling on all of this. So the EDL is for small businesses, sole proprietors, independent contractors. I get a lot of questions from attorneys because attorneys they contract a lot of their work. Does the PPP cover contractors? And it is not a forgivable portion of the PPP. However, the $10,000 grant money can be used for independent contractors. They can apply for it themselves. So, they have the same resources that you do as a business owner. It's not payroll related, so it doesn't have the same requirements as the PPP loan. So that's a little bit about the EDL. It's very messy in my opinion right now. It's hard to get, and I haven't seen it really come through, but it is there. Now the rest of if you get approved for a loan amount over $10,000, you can take it, but that part is going to have to be repaid under their regular payments requirements. The payroll protection loan program. So I think people hear more about this than anything. The way that they figure the amount of this loan, and you have to find a bank who does offer SBA loans. And so I've had a lot of questions around, well, I don't already have a relationship with the bank that offers SBA loans. In that case, I have heard of some banks who are taking on non-current customers. However, what I've been seeing the most of is banks being very particular. They're putting their customers first, of course. I've heard some banks are only taking current customers who have a credit card and a loan history with them. So, and here's the truth, these funds are going to run out really fast. And so, banks are of course, they want to serve their clients first. However, there's already talks of another round of 250 billion more being requested. So, there's already more in the works. So if you don't get in this initial round, still prepare your paperwork. And do I have time to go through the specifics on that too here today?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go through everything that the banks are requesting at this time so that you can have your ducks in order so that if and when this second round of PPP comes through, you're prepared and you can be first to the table, one of the first to the table. I've heard of very few banks who actually have this process nailed down. So, some of the banks are not responding. They're saying they're not prepared. And honestly, that's the truth. Some of them don't have the information that they need from the SBA. The SBA is scrambling to get things in order. I mean, honestly, if you look at the government and how this system works, I think they're doing an okay job of getting this stuff out there as quickly as they can. With the means that they have. Banks are redirecting their staff to SBA departments from other departments. I mean, they're really trying here. So some of the requested documents that they're going to ask you for. payroll documents, and this is the bulk of it. So if you have a payroll provider, if you have someone that does your payroll, if you do it through QuickBooks Online or Paychex or Gusto, Gusto has I love Gusto. I praise Gusto all day. They have an amazing report that they've updated 3 times now because it's changed, right? So they are on it. But they have an amazing report right now that you can pull, and it gives you the data that banks are asking for. It calculates your monthly average, and it gives you month by month what you need to report to these banks. So if you use Gusto, you are in luck. Send them a thank you email. So what they're going to be asking for are 2019 documents for most of you, unless you started your business, in 2020. But they're going to ask you for your W-3, which are your W-2 totals. It's like a company W-2 on everybody. They're going to ask you for federal 941s. These get filed and paid once a quarter. So you'll have 4 of those reports. They're going to ask you for your federal 940. This is your FUTA filing and payment that gets filed once a year. So there's 1 of those. They are going to ask for your business tax returns. So if you are an S Corp, C Corp, or partnership, your business return is separate from your personal return. Your business return is the one that you will need to provide. I have heard that they require the 2019 filing. I don't know how accurate that is. And the thing is, if you don't have your 2019 tax return in line already, accountants and tax preparers are bombarded right now. Tax season is rough as it is because you have everybody filing at once and everybody wanting it done right away. If you haven't started that process yet, I really wish you the best and try to find somebody who can get it done in a timely manner. I really do. But be compassionate towards them because this is a rough time of year anyway. If you are a sole proprietor, your business activities are going to be on your personal return. So they're going to want to see your personal return, more specifically your Schedule C. And if you're a new business, what they're going to be looking for is a profit and loss for January and February of 2020. So again, if you don't have your books in order, get them in order immediately, right? So I have a document in front of me that is the most recent SBA Paycheck Protection Program summary of expected terms from the bank that I work the most with. And it goes over some basic information, which has changed a little bit since the YouTube video that I put out going over the initial information that we got. So applications have been, they say they have been taken as of April 3rd, but again, some of the banks don't have things in order. Independent contractors and self-employed individuals, applications start April 10th. The way it is calculated is it is the lesser of 2.5 times your average monthly payroll costs or $10 million. Now, this is one thing that they've defined a little bit more specifically. It says per current final interim rule guidance, at least 75% of the PPP loan proceeds shall be used for payroll costs within 8 weeks of the date of the loan. So while they base the amount off of your payroll, there are other expenses, and I'll list those out here soon, that are forgivable, but they expect you to use at least 75% of the proceeds for payroll expenses. And it has to be spent within an 8-week window of the date of the loan. The repayment, the interest on these loans is 1%, and anything that is not forgiven, there's a 2-year term, and payment requirements are still to be determined. So they aren't quite sure how they're going to do that yet. Now, the initial 6 months of payments will be deferred for everyone, and the term on this loan is 2 years. So the use of funds, what can you use your PPP loan amounts for? Payroll costs, which we'll define in more detail in a moment. Costs related to the continuation of group healthcare benefits during periods of paid sick, medical, family leave, and insurance premiums, mortgage interest payments, rent payments. So that's mortgage interest, by the way, that's not principal. So there's a difference there. Rent payments, utility, interest payments on any other debt obligations that were incurred before February 15th, 2020, and or refinancing on SBA EIDL loan made between January 31st, 2020 and April 3rd, 2020. So requirements for a Paycheck Protection Program application. So this is another kind of how the application process works. So they have a form, it's SBA form 2483, and they have a list of questions. There are some questions that could disqualify you from receiving the loan, but they're very clear about that. So look at the application that your bank gives you, answer those questions, and make sure you're paying attention to which ones could disqualify you. So the source documents that you use to calculate the average monthly payroll figure. Like I said, if you have Gusto, they have done an amazing job at lining this out and populating that report automatically for you. And this is where those tax documents that I went over are going to come into play. So these are the source documents that they are going to request. So make sure you get those together. You'll have to know how many employees you had on or around February 15th, 2020. Again, Gusto did an amazing job. It's right up there in a box as to how many employees that you need to report. So let's see here. What qualifies as payroll costs? So this is a question that I've been getting a lot. Payroll costs consist of compensation to employees whose principal place of residence is the United States, in the form of salary, wages, commissions, or similar compensation, cash tips, or the equivalent, payment for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, allowance for separation or dismissal, payment for the provision of employee benefits consisting of group healthcare coverage, including insurance premiums and retirement contributions, and the payment of state and local taxes assessed on the compensation of employees. And for an independent contractor or sole proprietor, wage, commissions, income, or net earnings from self-employment or similar compensation. So another question that we get a lot on this is, can sole proprietors, people who are not on payroll, apply for this loan? And the answer is yes. And again, that opens up on the 10th. So they'll get that information from your books and your tax returns, that Schedule C on your personal tax return. Now, here's a good section that I wanted to point out. Is there anything that is expressly excluded from the definition of payroll costs? Yes, the Act expressly excludes the following: any compensation of an employee whose principal place of residence is outside of the United States, the compensation of an individual employee in excess of annual salary of $100,000 prorated as necessary. So I've seen some of the banks create their own Excel worksheets, and in that Excel worksheet, you have to calculate the amount of wage above the $100,000 a year because they're not allowing that much. So I think it breaks down to, if you make more than $8,333.33 a month, that is your cap of credit for this loan. The third item, federal employment taxes imposed or withheld between February 15th, 2020 and June 30th, 2020, including the employee and employer share of FICA, and income taxes required to be withheld from the employees. And the last item, qualified sick and family leave wages for which a credit is allowed under prior sections of this Corona Response Act. So we can't double dip on that. Let's see here. Okay, so here's a good question. Here's a good section too. So am I eligible? You're eligible for a PPP loan if you have 500 or fewer employees. Again, they have to live within the United States, or your business that operates in a certain industry and meets the applicable SBA employee-based size standards for that industry. And it'll go through those sections and those specifics when you see the information packet from your bank. You are also eligible for a PPP loan if you are an individual who operates under a sole proprietorship or as an independent contractor or eligible self-employed individual. So again, we have a lot of businesses who are worried about taking care of their independent contractors. But the truth is, as an independent contractor, someone who receives a 1099, they are a business. They are operating as a business, and they have the same resources as you do for these, financial relief programs. Here's another good one. Can I apply for more than one PPP loan? No. So I have a few people who have started an application with one bank. They're not hearing back from them fast enough. They want to move to another because, this is a first come, first serve basis. My advice to you is find the bank, stick with them. Again, there's another round supposedly in the works. If it comes through, stay there and give them all the information that you have so that if and when that second round comes through, you are one of the first in line. And then, can the PPP loan be forgiven in whole or in part? So yes, the amount of loan forgiveness can be up to the full principal amount of the loan and any accrued interest. So the party will not be responsible for any loan payment if the borrower uses all of the loan proceeds for forgivable purposes. And then it goes into a description of exactly what that is. So the actual amount of the loan forgiveness will depend in part on the total amount of payroll costs, payments of interest on mortgage, obligations incurred, these interest in mortgage accrued before January 15th, 2020. Rent is forgivable. Utility payments are forgivable. And again, all of these have to be used up within that 8-week window. So, and there's also a footnote here that SBA will issue additional guidance on loan forgiveness. So this is not all of, you know, they have some more to come, but this is what we know for now. And again, the money has to be used for at least 75% of payroll related items. So that's a little bit about the PPP. I know it's a lot, but it's good information. And again, reference your bank because the banks have different forms on this stuff right now. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, as far as resources to help digest this, where would you point someone to? Can they go to your website? Can they go to your YouTube channel? Are there places where they can find this broken down a little bit?
Man, if you just Google PPP right now, you can find it. I am, you know, if anybody wants to see the document that I'm referring to, I'm happy to send it to anybody. We can put my email in the notes and I can share that documentation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to do that. So after this is over, I'll go ahead and share your email in the notes. And so anybody who wants that, they can reach out to you and subject line COVID-19 PPP documentation, that sort of thing.
Sure. Yep.
Excellent. So you had mentioned a tax strategy that you wanted to talk about. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes. So like I said, I think that people are very focused on the free money right now. So I haven't seen a ton on this. I'm sure a lot of people still have not. I'm still getting clarity around it. So I'm going to share what I do know. And again, if you are interested in taking a look to see if this would benefit you, just email me and I will connect you with our tax strategy team to see if this is something, you know, again, that's going to be beneficial. So in the CARES Act, there is a tax law adjustment where you can, it's the 5-year loss carry back. So essentially, prior to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the TCJA, a net operating loss could be carried back 2 years and carried forward 20 years to offset taxable income on a dollar for dollar basis in those years. For net operating losses arising in taxable years beginning after December 31st, 2017, the TCJA limited the net operating loss deduction. So essentially what they're doing is they're lifting the limitations, and some people, if you have a loss that you can then carry back to prior years, some people are going to end up getting refunds because they're able to apply this loss under less restrictions and get refunds for prior years up to 5 years back. So for example, C Corps. Under new tax law, C Corps used to be taxed at a rate of 35%. Under new tax law, they are only taxed at 21%. So what this is proposing is that C Corps can go back and refile under these new restrictions, these lesser restrictions, and get a refund for the difference. So again, if this is something that it's still something I'm researching, because I've been like everybody else too. I've been PPP and SBA, and then, oh, hey, we've got this over here. So now we're paying a little more attention to it since this is kind of somewhat getting a little clearer. But if you are in a position where you have paid in quite a bit of taxes in prior years and your financial story looks a little bit different this year, or again, you're a C Corp, it's worth looking into. So again, if you're interested in seeing if it would even be something that benefits you, I'm happy to take emails and connect you with our tax strategy team.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we've been, or me personally, is just trying to do this like kind of armchair research and really understand the ins and outs of all these different forms of relief that are available to small businesses. But when you dive into it, there's so many other things and other considerations that you don't even know the questions to ask, right? And so I think seeking out that knowledge and finding videos like this and making connections to professionals like you, that's a really great place to start in terms of really getting a good understanding of what's available and what's going to help you get through COVID-19.
Yes. And, I always suggest if you're working with a professional who knows your books, who knows your taxes, and they're good at what they do and you have a good relationship, go to them with this. If they haven't had a chance to research it yet, like I said, tax preparers right now is crazy anyway. So for them to be able to divert their time and research this, they may not have done it yet. But again, if you're working with a solid professional, go to them and ask them about this and just bring it to their attention.
Cool. So everyone's kind of waiting on their personal stimulus checks. What are some things that attorneys, law firm owners should be aware of, as they're waiting on those?
Yes. So the latest on the personal stimulus checks, they're saying, so it's supposed to happen by direct deposit. It's supposed to happen next week is what I'm hearing. And here's kind of some information on that. So if you have not filed 2018 or 2019 tax return, you'll need to file your returns, or, because like I said, if you're just now getting in line, let's be honest, it's going to be a while. But they also have an option where you can register for the check. So TurboTax has created a web page for you to be able to register with the IRS if you have not filed your 2018, 2019 tax returns, which is really awesome of them, I think. Now, some people are going to be in a situation where they didn't provide their banking info on previous year's tax returns. So what they're going to do by default is they're going to cut you a check, which could take up to 5 months. So the IRS is working on, they don't have it yet, but the IRS is working on a portal that I think is supposed to be done late April. You can go there and you could input your banking information straight to the irs.gov. And so that's another way to update it so that you don't have to wait on your personal check. And so the way that these are going to work, essentially, these stimulus checks are going to show up as rebates on your 2020 tax return. So it's not taxable income. It is not an advance of the refunds. It's going to show up as a rebate. So if you're due to get a refund in 2021 when you file your 2020 tax returns, this is not going to take away from that. However, if you haven't filed your 2019 tax return and you end up not qualifying for these stimulus checks, they will take it back on your 2020 return when you go to file next year. So wow, that's the latest on that and kind of how that's going to work. So I would definitely go to, if you haven't filed those tax returns, go to the TurboTax webpage and do that. I only say that because that's the only one I know of. I'm not promoting TurboTax or anything. But that's the only one I know of that has made that relationship.
Great. I actually just dropped that link into the comments underneath this live stream. So if you're watching this, feel free to click onto that. There's also some great resources on Chelsea's website that I've linked to in the comments section. So be sure to check that out as well.
Thank you.
So one question that I have for you is the difference between like a small law firm, a solo lawyer, and maybe like a mid-sized law firm. Are there differences in considerations? What are some things that they should be looking out for depending on like the size of their firm and who they're responsible for?
So I would say starting with mid to big size firms, going back to your team is your power. Right now, not being able to work in an office environment, getting everybody on the same page, empowering your people. If they don't have work to do and you want to keep them on, give them the task of back-end systems and leverage this downtime to be able to come out on the other end stronger. I think it's going to be a little bit easier for solo firms that don't have that much in staff to make these decisions and to get through this and still have access to the funding. So, and I think everybody should use the resources that are given to them, both in their business and personally, calling your service providers, calling your vendors, calling your lending companies to see if they're participating in any financial relief. I think everyone should be reaching out for resources at a business and personal level right now.
Excellent. So we have a couple more minutes that we can talk. What are some things that you're personally doing to stay sane during this time and keep business moving?
You know, so I always tell people, I mean, I'm an accounting nerd. Like, we love spreadsheets. We could get off into spreadsheets. And this is actually, despite the hardship that some of our clients are going through, working with all these spreadsheets and building these budgets and helping people with this is where we thrive. This is where we shine. So, you know, and we have some people that don't really, they're our clients, but they don't really feed into what we preach. And it's kind of brought them to us in a way that really kind of shines some light on the potential and the power that knowing your numbers and knowing your books kind of brings. So, but, you know, and I also personally, I'm taking this time to develop some habits to exercise my flexibility muscle, right? So like us as entrepreneurs, we took the leap off of the cliff. We gave up the right to be complacent and survive, right? And so I say a lot, you know, entrepreneurs, it's not the leap. They say the leap like we do it once. We have to be prepared to jump and jump. And if you get to this place, the lucky people, we enjoy the jump, right? We look for the jumps. We seek the jumps in moderation. So, you know, right now, making sure that you're exercising your flexibility muscle. As an entrepreneur, we have to be able to pivot. We have to have the foresight to see where we want to go if you want to survive long term. You know, I have one of the channels on my YouTube. I do interviews with the top 10% of law firm owners, that being law firms who have been in business for over 10 years. That's a mark in the statistical world. And I have conversations with these people, and there is this constant that you pick up on if you watch all of the videos, and it's that higher level thinking that has gotten them through and this perspective, right? So along with Tony Robbins' 80-20 motto, there's a saying out there that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. And they have really mastered that reaction to be of sound mind and to be long-term, and it helps them keep a level head. And that's where the importance of personal habits come in. I mean, I talk to a lot of people who meditate or pray or whatever that might be for them, or do breathing exercises. I mean, you really have to take care of yourself mentally and physically in this arena.
Yeah, I think that's such great advice. I'm a huge fan of Ryan Holiday and kind of like the Stoicism school of thought, where it's kind of like the challenges that stand in your way are that's what's gonna present the biggest opportunities for you, both personally and professionally. You know, it's those challenges that force you to be creative, that force you to find solutions, and those are the things that are going to make you a better entrepreneur, a better business owner, a better lawyer. And I think lawyers should know that more so than anyone, because they go to law school and they have to take these tests and these exams and take the bar exam. These things are super difficult to do. And you take on extreme financial obligations to do that. But that's what makes you successful in the long run. I think this is just another form of that.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Well, great. So Chelsea, if you could just let everyone know how they can get in touch with you, that'd be great. I really appreciate you coming on here today and talking with me about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website where all the resources are is yourcoresolution.com, which I believe you dropped in the notes. And then I'll direct everybody to my email, which is chelsea@yourcoresolution.com for any other questions.
Excellent. Thanks, Chelsea.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, have a good night.